Hello everybody, welcome back to the Lucy Superfox show. My name is Lucy Superfox and this is my podcast. So on today's episode, I want to talk a little bit about attachment theory, polyvagal theory, and if you're like, what? I basically want to talk about how safe it feels to be you and why the reason that you are either anxious, avoidant, insecure, or why you find yourself ending up in the same spot in relationships, food, money, body, and business. We're understanding how your nervous system works and how attachment theory is a pure extension of nervous system theory. This may just make it all make sense. So without further ado, let's dive in. So attachment theory, and there's going to be a few episodes on this coming up, but attachment theory is founded on the premise and the principle that the way we attach to our early caregivers early in life, it simply dictates how safe we feel going out into the world. So if we have a secure attachment style with our caregivers, that will mean that as we go out into the world, we will feel secure to try new things, to put ourselves out there, because we'll have that foundation of safety to come back to. Now, I also believe that if we go through a ton of adverse experiences, even somebody with a secure attachment style, with a parent that was fully present, available, very loving, very kind, made them feel, beautifully safe as a child. If we go through a ton of shitty experiences, the nervous system is still going to learn it's unsafe. But that's really the premise of attachment theory, is that the way we attach ourselves to outside things, but particularly to other people, we're either anxious, so we worry, we control, we need validation, we seek approval. We're avoidant, we punish, we maybe pull back, we feel rejected, and so we block and push people away. And more generally, both of those two things fall under what's called an insecure attachment. Now, there's another fourth category called disorganized attachment, which means we're very unpredictable, which means that with some people we'll be anxious and some people will be avoidant. Now, in all of these scenarios, what I see as a nervous system and somatic therapist is simply a body that feels unsafe. And when the body feels unsafe, it will seek resolution, it will seek peace, it will seek comfort outside of itself every single time. So if in early years, children did not have a safe attachment, so if your parents were neurodivergent and undiagnosed and inconsistent, if maybe there was a lot going on in your home and it was a busy home, or there was stress about money, stress about work, stress about childcare, or in fact you did go through early adverse childhood experiences, otherwise known as trauma, then what can often happen is we learn that we're not safe as a kind of primal state of being. So when this happens later in life, it's very likely that you will see and you will behave with this disorganized style or this insecure style, because you're still looking for that same reassurance, that same sense of safety as you did when you were a child. Now, as I've said, whether you had a secure upbringing, an insecure upbringing, whether you were secure and then became insecure later after adverse experiences, my point is the same. In all of the scenarios where you are looking outside of yourself for validation, or where you can't hold down a relationship, whether it's with money or a person, whether actually you constantly feel anxious in one area and then stressed about another that just overwhelms you, that tells me a lot about how you're orienting yourself based on your outside world. And orienting is a fancy word that just simply means how the outside world is affecting you, what it's telling your body and nervous system about how safe you are. So if you're still looking for validation, whether it's on social media, from a person, from your bank balance, from, success or results in life, and this is something that I struggled with for years. I struggled with needing to be seen, to be heard, to be validated by the people around me, but also by people I didn't even fucking know. And truly because I had an anxious attachment style where I wanted to know I was safe. I wanted reassurance. I wanted certainty. I wanted somebody to tell me this is how this is going to go. Now, I also know a big part of this was, me not knowing the level of my neurodivergent diagnosis, and that as part of neurodivergency, a big part of being neurodivergent means women actually crave certainty in a whole other way. But they also crave, depending on kind of where you sit across the diagnoses, there's also the need for all the kind of the chasing of that next hit, right? That next pleasure, that next thing. And so as a combination of those two things, it will make women very driven, very high performing, very successful, like it did with me. But what it also led to was then a constant need for outside validation, a constant need for outside success, a constant need for momentum, a constant need to see results. And when that was no longer possible or available through varying things that happened in my life, and in burnout, will be one of those things that takes you right out of that game. What then happens is certainty disappears, right? And when certainty disappears, the entire nervous system becomes activated. Now, I bet that at some point in your life, you've been seriously worried about something that was unknown, whether it was someone's health, whether it was in a relationship, you didn't know if you were broken up or back together, whether it was in, child custody case, whether it was in an ongoing battle with a neighbor, or whether it was simply that you were constantly worried and trying to control an area of your life. When you felt that way, you know the overwhelming discomfort, pain, and frustration that shows up, right? You know it. But what's really happening when we're doing that is we're outsourcing our safety. We're outsourcing our sense of autonomy, our sense of agency, our sense of power, our sense of, if you want to use big wanky marketing words, our audacity. We're outsourcing our authenticity into feeling safe, into feeling certain. And so when we use attachment theory to understand ourselves, it's a powerful first step, it's a powerful label. But what it's also really saying is that our nervous system is wired for danger. When we're insecure or we're anxious or disorganized, we're actually wired and primed for danger. And so the answer isn't to fixate ourselves on finding safety in one thing. Trust me, I've tried it, it doesn't fucking work, right? Because that's all I did was fixate my safety from food to my body to people to, titles and accolades to money to identity. And ultimately I had to come back to this place of realizing that my safety couldn't be determined on anything other than how I felt in the present moment. And that's been a relatively recent understanding, if I'm totally honest. But in all of the scenarios where you understand your attachment, where you understand what you're attached to, the premise and the foundation to it is how safe you feel to be you. How safe it feels to live in your body, to live in your life experience, not just because of outside things, although those are absolutely contributing factors, but how safe it feels to feel your emotions, how safe it feels to feel shame and frustration and guilt and anger and sadness, or whether every time those come up for you, you push them down and reach outside of yourself. Because that's what's happening, is that a lot of highly sensitive and neurodivergent women are feeling uncomfortable emotions and then looking outside of themselves to get that safety, to get that certainty, to get that next hit, to avoid feeling those emotions, to avoid having a relationship with those emotions. But what is not talked about is the fact that every single time you do that, you outsource your sense of safety. And when we do that, it means that one, our self-worth, our self-love, our sense of self is conditional based on outside circumstances. But two, if we're bringing manifestation into this game, which you all know I love talking about, we are literally outsourcing our manifestation power to control, to manipulation, to hustle every single time. If we actually truly want to become a manifesting magnet, if you truly want to attract with the ease and the freedom and the expansion that most highly sensitive humans are craving, that's about being in the present moment. But if you're an anxious, insecure, disorganized attachment where you are attaching your safety to outside things, being in the present moment will feel completely impossible. Because if you have to sit with yourself and know yourself and feel how you really feel and still function as a human being, that would overwhelm most nervous systems right off the bat. And so this is the work I do with clients, where we get to the root of why you're reaching outside of yourself for the validation, the approval, the need, why your attachment style is anxious, but not so we know it, so that we can shift it inside the body. So we can make it safe for you to be present with yourself, safe to be with your emotions, safe to not bypass, safe to not jump out, safe to not push them down, so that you don't end up in a place with a ton of labels and diagnoses that explain your behavior but don't actually help you move forward. So that you can actually be in the present moment with your loved ones, whether that's to have an absolutely banging orgasm, eat an incredible meal, or actually be present with your children and not worrying about what tomorrow brings or thinking about what someone said yesterday. But the answer to all of that is feeling safe to be in the present moment. And most highly sensitive women do not yet have the nervous system to capacity to feel the fullness of the intensity of their emotions, right? Highly sensitive humans have sensory processing, SPS, sensory processing sensitivity, can't even say it, which is why we feel things so much over time that eventually the nervous system will downregulate. It will say, I cannot handle the intensity of all these things, right? And it will start to shut down and withdraw. And I truly believe this is a huge contributing factor to why highly sensitive women are exhausted, ending up with chronic conditions like IBS, CFS, fibromyalgia, and being given other labels and diagnoses, because what's happening is they don't have the capacity because they weren't taught it as children, or they didn't get that sense of safety and secure attachment, that they are then outsourcing that sense of safety. But when we are looking to the outside world to make us feel safe, and let's face it, right now, the outside world is upside fucking down, right? you are going to feel emotionally unstable, mentally unstable, physically unstable, and then you're going to receive labels and diagnoses that explain those instabilities, and then those labels are going to be limiting factors that you are going to allow to hold you back in all areas of life because they explain and they make everything make sense. But what if, rather than an anxious attachment, you could repivot this to, I don't feel safe? What if rather than an avoidant attachment, you could repivot this to, I don't feel safe? Rather than disorganized attachment, you could repivot this to, I don't feel safe. What if it could be about finding safety inside yourself, presence inside yourself, the willingness to be with yourself, to be with your emotions? And you're not going to do it all at once. And I also hold a very strong opinion that, the answer to healing is absolutely feeling your feelings, but doing it in the right environment with the right support. And this is why for women who this is like new to, or you're kind of open to it, curious to it, on the edge of it, where I made my roadmap. It's a 4-part roadmap that explains my exact method that I work through with clients. And what's happened so much of the time is women are missing step 2. And so when you dive into this roadmap, I know you're going to see step 2 and go, oh my gosh, that's me. I've been going from awareness, knowing what my problems are, knowing what my challenges are, and jumping straight into personal development, spiritual principles, and pushing and driving and moving forward and trying to escape how we really feel. But the answer to being well, being healthy, having vitality, not being attached to all these outside things is simply feeling safe to feel how we really feel. Being able to be emotionally present with ourselves and give that safety back to ourselves as an inner resource versus an outward source. And so when we find ourselves in these loops, in these patterns, in the behaviors that most of my clients do, emotional eating, self-sabotage, not knowing their abundance, not growing their business, finding themselves in the same place, being unhappy or unfulfilled in relationships, losing their sex drive, it's a massive one. That is a sign you are disconnected from your body. Because over time, your experience of life was either too overwhelming or you just didn't have the skills and the capacity to be able to experience life in its fullest form. And as a result, that leads to shutdown, repression, suppression, and withdrawal. And this is why so many highly sensitive women know they're sensitive, but they just don't feel anything. But this is where your attachment style is a powerful indicator of why you do the things you do, of how you do the things, maybe even where that comes from. But it's not the answer to heal it. It's not the answer to feeling safe again. It's not the answer to becoming a manifesting magnet. Just because you understand your attachment style will not change your experience of it. When you understand it, can integrate it, and then move through it, that's when the magic fucking happens. So if attachment styles are new to you, I want to just really give you a summary to say that any attachment style other than secure simply means that your body does not feel safe, and it will outsource its safety, its power, its sense of worth, its sense of self-love, its sense of comfort to things outside of yourself rather than a sense of that inside of yourself. And when somebody has a secure attachment, they have just managed a sense of self-safety, a sense of self-trust, a sense of self-worth, and a sense of self-knowing and self-regulation. They've just mastered it, right? It's just a set of skills that anybody can acquire. And so if you're sat on the end of this right now thinking, oh my gosh, this is me, this makes so much sense, then I would strongly recommend downloading my free 4-part roadmap. It's a 25-minute workshop and a downloadable PDF, and it's completely free, where I break down the exact method I walk clients through to move them from this level of awareness where they know what the problems are, ultimately moving them through the stages so they move into this element of freedom, this sense of expansion and ease with food, money, body, business, and whatever it might be for them. So remember, whether it's attachment theory, whether it's polyvagal theory, whether it's knowing that your nervous system is dysregulated, the truth is the answer to all of it is creating a sense of self and a sense of safety inside yourself. And this is the work I do with clients, where we get to the root of why they feel the way they do and shift it at the root so those patterns and programs no longer live out in their lives as if they are true. So if you're ready for that deep work, you're curious about what that looks like, you can go to lucysuperfox.com/roadmap and download my roadmap. So if you love this episode, I'd love you to like, subscribe, share this with another highly sensitive human who might find this helpful, and I'll see you on the next episode.